Oh boy, getting some food, living off the land here. I don't know what the deal is with these ones. Like, these ones look fine, but I don't know if something's eating that, guys. If you're a farmer, comment below. Oh yeah! And she's quiet as a Prius. Wow! What is going on there, guys? Holy crap. Don't worry, it's wrapped. That will be explained in a different video, which I've probably already published, so go look for that. And we are off. Let me put this AC down below so you guys don't hear it. Although I will probably keep one of the windows cracked just because everyone does want to hear the car. I want to hear the car. Quick little trick when you're exiting driveways, if you have the adjustable dampers, is to put it on the sport setting, because that will reduce the flexibility of your suspension. So welcome to another video, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I'm gonna try to make this a little quick one, but it is going to be an in-car vlog, and it's going to be talking about why I picked the M3. And I did a lot of other videos about this in the past, the F80 versus the E92 and so on, but a lot of people say, well, why do you like BMW? And that's kind of where this sort of stems from. And it's not that I love BMW. I mean, I do like BMW. I do want to say I probably like the older BMW more than the newer BMW, if that makes sense. Sort of their rationale for changing things, their updates and stuff like that. In particular, the new F80s, they just don't feel the same. We're not going to really talk about the F80s versus this car. That is a separate video, which actually did really well. So go check that out if you want to hear me kind of complain about how the F80s sound like a lawnmower. When people ask me, a lot of times they say, why did you pick BMW? It's not that I picked BMW. I picked this car. Before I had this car, I picked an E92 335i. It was a 2011, so it was the N55 motor, and I was more than happy with it because that was my first performance rear-wheel drive, manual, that sort of thing. Kind of a random fact is that was my first manual car, and I had not driven manual before that except for on 2 cars for less than 5 minutes each. So when I drove the test drive, it was a little nerve-wracking with the guy. I was scared, but I did not stall it, so that's good. We were going to talk about car makers and car brands and the future of cars, and in my opinion, electric is the future, whether we want it to be or not. I think that the more performance cars will be still very driver focused as possible, but they are going to be either electrically assisted or fully electric, you know, in a few decades, depending, you know, how the laws go and all that stuff. But I didn't have this huge aspiration to own a BMW when I was young. I always liked the E46 M3 and the E39 M5. Those were the latest and greatest, the newest. Everyone loved them. Everyone still loves them, probably debatably even more when you realize how well they've aged and how well they still perform and how they look and all that stuff. So BMW was always good from a brand perspective when I was younger. I think they're still very good and very ingenuitive. However, you know, there's still a handful of things, in particular, like the new F80s, and I can't say I totally hate on the torque converter that they put in the new M5. That's just because of power, guys, and it seems to shift very quickly, so you can't really fault them for that, to be honest. They have to make kind of that as a business decision. But I guess going back to what I was saying, I wasn't really obsessed with having a BMW. I was fine with any performance vehicle, and really it came down to criteria. And you know, I did want rear-wheel drive, and I did not want 4 doors. And you know, I did want a manual. I wanted a good sounding car. A lot of people ask, you know, why didn't you get a WRX or STI or whatever? And to be honest with you guys, I wanted something that was a little less popular. You know, when you go to car events, there's like 30 STIs there, and I don't have a problem with them. They don't sound too bad, but it's a small engine, so there's only, you know, so many things you can do with it to make it sound a certain way. And of course I'm biased with a freaking V8 over here, but that's just kind of why I ended up getting, you know, a car like this. And the same thing was the case with my 335. It wasn't because, you have to understand, it wasn't because it was a BMW, especially because BMW kind of has a bad rap for drivers, you know, not using blinkers and cutting people off and being a jerk on the road. And I really do hate that. You know, that's one of the things that kind of made me a little hesitant, to be honest with you guys, is I didn't want to be a BMW driver, and I don't think I am. You know, I get on it and I have some fun, but that's not at anyone's expense. Originally I had a 335i that was very spec, similar to this M3. It was Alpine white. It had you know, black accents. It had wheels for it, and it was the M Sport package, so it was a little more sporty looking, as sporty as a non-M car can look. Obviously the bulging fenders in the hood is just definitely a differential that you'll never be able to replicate unless you buy this car. It just looks different. There's just a, you know, it's only 30% the same car as a car like a 335, for example, so it's very different. But when I had the 335 and it was totaled, I kind of realized by accident that, like, the M3 that I've always wanted was within reach from a dollars perspective. So it was, you know, in the mid 30s to 40 grand, and that was something that I was comfortable paying for, and I had a lot of positive equity in my 335 because I put a big down payment and I was paying it off, you know, obviously regularly. So I only owed like 5 grand. So to buy an M3 was, from a financial perspective, very comfortable for me. Take a little break from talking and rev it out a little bit. That was only like 6,000 RPM, guys. So really what led me to a car like this, or the 335, or really any vehicle, even the Jeep, I have this criteria of things I want, and then it sort of leads me to a few cars that have that criteria. And you know, Mercedes doesn't have manuals, and Audis, in my opinion, are overpriced for what you get, and a lot of guys have reliability issues with them, and that's just my experience with friends that have Audis and what I've read online, and, you know, ratings and stuff like that. I mean, I'm sorry to hate on Audi, but they just aren't worth it for me. I just didn't think it was worth it. So I hope all of this is making sense, guys. Obviously, people tend to gravitate towards certain brands just because of, you know, certain reasons, whether it's they want to have a certain status symbol. Sometimes that's a reason, and honestly, that's fine. You know, if you want to own a Mercedes and have that, you know, luxurious or whatever status symbol, then that's fine. It doesn't really impress me, to be honest with you guys, to have a Mercedes, okay, because usually it's just like a basic C-Class or a basic E-Class. Like, that doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't sound like anything. It's not quick. It doesn't feel like much. So, you know, you have this car, but if that's what makes you happy, then do it. There's a lot of hate in the car community, whether it's against BMW or it's against riced out cars or it's against whatever. I mean, there's hate against literally any single car you can potentially buy, mod, change, keep, whatever you want to do. You know, you put different tires on your car and people will say you made the worst financial decision of your life. So what it comes down to is, get what you want. Stop worrying about what other people say and think. You know, have logic behind what you're doing and have a certain comfort level. I think that that's really important. But I wasn't led to BMW because of any other reason other than the fact that they had a few specific models, very specific models, like the 335 and the M3, that I've always wanted and I've always liked, and those models had things that I wanted. And you can say, well, Brandon, you're forgetting about this car. Well, I've probably already thought about it, and I guess for the sake of this video, I don't really have time to talk about every single car that I could have bought instead of the M3. But I paid $35,900 for this E92 M3 with 30,000 miles on it at the time. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the best buy out of almost everyone that I know. If you're gonna spend 35 or 36 grand on a car, name another car that is better. Sure, I'm sure you can. That would kind of be interesting to put in the comments below. But that's kind of my point, is don't worry about what other people say or think or will critique you. I will say, from my experience, the BMW guys are probably one of the best group of car guys that I've ever met. They are very high enthusiasts, they are very high attention to detail, they like driving the cars, and they're very involved with the cars. I can't say the same about Audi. A lot of the guys who are like that, they like the details and they like their Audis, they don't find a lot of other Audi groups as easily. And that is part of it too. And that, to me, I didn't even know. I didn't know that the BMW crowd, in my experience, was a higher involved enthusiast following than a crowd like Audi. So that is a huge plus if you guys are interested in getting into, whether it's a German car brand or even a Camaro. I know a lot of those guys are very enthusiast driven, Corvettes, all that stuff. So that is a huge plus about BMW. You know, maybe you are worried about the bad rap about BMW in particular, but the community and everything, I mean, it's great. I mean, every guy I've met that drives a BMW, there's only been a random couple of guys here and there, but that's like with any group of cars. Oh, it's an SS. I hope you guys get the drift here. I think that that was kind of the main topic, is people think that well, really, people, you know, are biased per brand, and I'm not biased. I like the community and I like the guys, and you know, I like everything about it. You know, even, you know, an E60 M5 or whatever. I mean, that car is bonkers. It's you know, probably very expensive to maintain. I appreciate you tuning into the channel. You know, if you're still watching this video, I appreciate it. Leave a comment below. You know, if you have any thoughts or you want me to talk about this a little bit more. I normally reserve, you know, these discussions with you guys in the camera and the community, all these peeps, for a very specific topic, and usually it does pretty well. That turn that I just made was where I totaled my 335, and the first time I made it without, first time I made it in a different car was a little scary. I might be doing more detailing videos on this M3, but if you haven't checked out my other videos, I am thinking about adding a car to the stable, which could possibly be an M3. A lot of people want me to get an E46 M3, which I would love to have, but with 2 doors and stuff, you know, it's hard to justify having 2 vehicles that are, I wouldn't say very similar, but they're similar in the respect of, like, kind of on paper, they're both rear-wheel drive and they both have 2 doors and they're both M3s, and I mean, that'd be really cool, but I don't know, I'm feeling a little hesitant about that, to be honest with you. All right, one last downshift and we go around, and we're gonna end this video, like I said, like 5 times. Traction control sucks. Kicked in right away. Sometimes it does that in MDM mode, but all right, guys, so I'm finishing this video. Subscribe below if you're still watching. For God's sakes, I mean, you're still watching this video, so a lot of my videos are much better than this, much more entertaining, much more car stuff going on. So once again, I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in to the Community of Shifted Perspective channel, and I'll see you guys next time.